Tired of scientific jargon? Get the facts without the friction. This is Weekly Digested Science, where we translate the world's most significant peer-reviewed research into your weekly news update. For a trustworthy source of knowledge, hit like and subscribe.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking on a behavior that feels so fundamental to being human. We barely even think about it. Kissing.
Right. It seems totally intuitive.
It does. A romantic kiss, a peck on the cheek, a parent kissing a scraped knee. It feels, universal, like it's just part of our DNA. But the second you look at the sources we have in front of us, that idea just completely falls apart.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We're going to strip away all the cultural baggage, all the Hollywood romance, and get right to the hard science of mouth-to-mouth contact.
So we're looking at history, biology, anthropology.
All of it. We're pulling it all together to answer some really big questions like, where did kissing actually come from? When did it show up in our family tree? And why is it so important in some cultures, but, totally absent in others?
That's a perfect mission statement. Okay, so let's start there. If we're going to talk about this across the entire animal kingdom, we need a definition that works for more than just humans. How do the biologists actually define it?
They have to be super precise. The formal definition is a non-agonistic interaction.
Non-agonistic means not a fight.
Exactly. Not aggressive, not competitive. It's directed oral contact, and this is important. It's intraspecific.
Let's quickly break that down for everyone. Intraspecific just means within the same species.
Yes. A chimp kissing a chimp, not a chimp kissing a gorilla. And then there's the final crucial rule,
which is
absolutely no food transfer. That's the bright line.
Got it. So that separates it from, say, a mother bird feeding its chick.
Precisely. And with that definition, suddenly you see this behavior everywhere. It is far from just a human thing.
Right. You mentioned the animal kingdom. How widespread is this, really?
I mean, it's surprisingly diverse. You see it in polar bears. They use it for reconciliation. It's in birds, like albatrosses use it in these elaborate courtship rituals. Even insects. Ants engage in mouthpart contact to transfer chemicals.
But for our lineage, for us, we really need to focus on the primates.
That's where the trail gets hot. Specifically, the Afro-Eurasian monkeys and apes, the group we call the Catarrhini.
So we can actually follow the evolutionary breadcrumbs back through our own family tree. What does that history tell us? When did this become an ape thing?
The phylogenetic work is really clear on this. It looks like kissing is an ancient conserved trait within the great apes, the hominidae.
The great apes. So that's us, chimps, bonobos, gorillas.
Exactly. And the analysis suggests it first evolved in our common ancestor right after we split from the small apes, the gibbons.
So we're not talking thousands of years. We're talking
millions. The estimate is somewhere between 21.5 and 16.9 million years ago. This is a profoundly old behavior.
Okay, that is staggering. And this is where it gets really exciting for our more immediate family tree, the Neanderthal connection. If the behavior is that old, does that mean they were doing it too?
The evidence points very strongly to yes. Our sources cite a Bayesian analysis, which is a statistical method that puts the probability of Neanderthals kissing at a long 0.84
So in plain English, that's a very high chance.
It's extremely likely. But the supporting evidence is almost even better. It comes from oral microbes.
I found this part absolutely incredible.
It is. We know for a fact that modern humans and Neanderthals shared certain mouth bacteria, specifically a bug called Methanobrevibacter oralis.
Right, but the key is the timing of it all. The two species split a long time ago.
Hundreds of thousands of years ago. But their oral microbes, the different strains of this bacteria, only split apart much later, between about 112 and 143,000 years ago.
So the bacteria were still being swapped back and forth long after the species had diverged.
Exactly. It implies ongoing, frequent, intimate contact. Now, could that happen by sharing food? Maybe. Pre-chewing food for kids? Also possible. But kissing is a very efficient way to swap saliva and microbes. It suggests, more than just bumping into each other on the landscape.
It suggests a level of sustained intimacy that really changes how you picture those interactions.
It really does.
Okay, so let's jump forward from deep prehistory to early written history. This is where we see another fascinating split, because it turns out not all kisses are the same. Egypt and Mesopotamia give us two very different pictures.
Yeah, this is where culture starts to really shape the behavior. In ancient Egypt, around the 24th century BCE, the verb for kiss was en, and it meant both to smell and to kiss.
And the hieroglyph for it is literally a nose, right?
It is, which strongly suggests the focus was on the nose, a sniff kiss. Nose-to-nose contact, which is still very common in many parts of the world.
So it's more about smelling, taking in the breath, than lip contact.
Right. And the function was a bit different too. It was about affiliation, for sure. But that same word, en, could be used to express obedience. Like in relation to the ground, we see these carvings of courtiers standing nose to nose. It was a sign of respect, of loyalty.
Of a very formal, respectful act in Egypt. Now contrast that with what was happening next door in Mesopotamia.
A completely different world. The most striking piece of evidence is a clay plaque from around 1800 BCE. And it's very explicit.
It doesn't leave much to the imagination.
No, it shows a man and a woman having sex and very clearly kissing each other on the lips. The link to sexuality is undeniable.
But the sources also point out that before that plaque, kissing was really rare in their texts. It only showed up in myths.
Yes, and that's a huge point. In the 3rd millennium BCE, so even earlier, kissing is pretty much exclusively found in Sumerian myths about gods and goddesses. This leads to what historians call the elite hypothesis.
Okay, and what's the core idea of that hypothesis?
Well, the question is, did this behavior start with the elite and then trickle down, or was it something everyone did that the elite then sort of co-opted for their stories to seem more divine? Because it only appears in these godlike contexts at first, it raises the possibility that lip kissing was originally a very rarefied, high-status behavior in that part of the world.
What a journey. From a behavior that's millions of years old in apes to a symbol of divine status in one of the first civilizations. Let's pivot now to the global picture today and tackle that big assumption we started with. Is the romantic, lip-to-lip kiss a human universal?
It's one of those things you probably assume is true. I mean, it's in every movie, every book. But the anthropological data is it's a definite no.
So there's a big cross-cultural survey.
A huge one. They looked at 168 different cultures from all around the world, and they found absolutely no evidence that the romantic sexual kiss is universal. Not even close.
Okay, so if it's not in 100% of cultures, what's the real number?
It was only present in 46% of the cultures they studied.
46%. That means more than half of the world's cultures don't do it.
That's right. For over half the cultures sampled, the idea of pressing your mouths together in a romantic way is considered strange or even disgusting.
That number is genuinely shocking, especially coming from a Western perspective where it's just everywhere. It really shows how our own culture can warp our sense of what's natural.
It does. And what's even more interesting is the correlation they found with social structure.
What was the pattern?
In complex, stratified societies, with social classes, governments, big populations, the romantic kiss was present in a massive 82% of them.
In simpler, more egalitarian societies.
The number plummets. Only 29% of egalitarian societies, like hunter-gatherers or small-scale farmers, practiced it. There seems to be a powerful link between social complexity and the romantic kiss becoming a key part of courtship.
And for those other cultures, the 54%, they obviously still show affection. They just have other ways.
Absolutely. They have alternatives that don't involve swapping saliva. The oceanic or Malay kiss is a famous example. It's much more about sniffing, rubbing faces, pressing cheeks together. The study also found these huge regional gaps, like romantic kissing is pretty common among foragers in the Arctic, but almost completely absent among foragers in, say, sub-Saharan Africa or the Amazon.
So, given that it does exist in nearly half the world, and it has these incredibly deep primate roots, let's talk about why. What are the adaptive functions? Why do we do it?
The evolutionary psychologists have broken it down into 3 main hypotheses. They aren't mutually exclusive, but they're distinct. First, mate assessment. Second, pair bond mediation. And third, arousal and coitus initiation.
Let's start with mate assessment. The research suggests this one is especially important for women.
It all comes back to parental investment. Because females have a higher minimum investment in offspring, they evolved to be the more selective sex. So the kiss becomes this incredibly efficient, up-close assessment tool.
They're gathering data.
So much data. Women consistently rate a partner's breath, their taste, the health of their teeth as extremely important cues. They're literally smelling for genetic compatibility and overall health.
And there was some dramatic data on how crucial this is.
It's stark. In one study, only 14.6% of women said they would have sex with someone without kissing them first.
And for men.
52.8%. A huge difference. And being a good kisser was found to increase a man's desirability way more for women than the other way around, especially for short-term fling. It strongly suggests women are using that first kiss as a kind of a final quality check.
A test drive.
Basically, yes.
So if women are primarily using it for assessment, are men more focused on the arousal and access function?
That's how the evidence leans. Men in the studies tended to place less importance on kissing overall, but they had a very specific preference. They preferred wetter kisses, more tongue contact.
And the interpretation of that is?
The idea is that this maximizes salivary exchange, which serves to increase sexual arousal and receptivity in their partner. There's even a hypothesis that men are transferring trace amounts of testosterone through their saliva to subtly influence female mating psychology.
That's fascinating.
It fits the data. And we also see men are more likely to use a kiss to end a fight. About 70% of men thought it was a good reconciliation tool compared to only 58% of women. For men, it seems to be a faster way to restore access and intimacy.
Okay, and that leaves the third function, pair bond mediation. This seems to be about keeping a long-term relationship strong.
This is where both sexes really align. Kissing frequency is strongly and positively correlated with relationship satisfaction for everyone. It's maintenance. But there's one last subtle difference here.
What's that?
Men are more likely to initiate kissing before sex, for arousal, but women are more likely to initiate kissing after sex. In that context, the kiss is purely about bonding and reaffirming the connection.
So we've covered the why assessment, arousal, bonding, but let's go back to the physical how. How did a simple mouth movement turn into this incredibly symbolic act? This is the concept of exaptation, right?
Exaptation is the perfect word for it. It's when a trait that evolved for one purpose gets co-opted for a totally new function. So we have to look for behaviors in our ancestors that already involve this kind of gentle, controlled, mouth-to-mouth contact.
And the sources point to two main candidates for where the physical motion came from.
The first is pre-mastication, just pre-chewing food and transferring it mouth to your baby. It's very common in great apes, and it's a really strong candidate because we see it in every single ape species that also shows kissing behavior. The mechanics are already there.
Okay, that's the practical one. But the second one, the groomer's final kiss hypothesis, is so much more poetic.
It's a beautiful theory. The idea is that our romantic kiss is actually a leftover piece of primate grooming. As our ancestors lost their fur, the practical need for picking parasites off each other all day went down.
But one part of the ritual stuck around.
The very last step. When a primate grooms another, the final move is often to use protruded lips and a little bit of suction to gently lift off a piece of debris or a scab. That very specific motion, the pursed lips, the gentle suction, was retained even after its hygienic job was gone.
And it became a pure symbol.
It evolved into a pure symbol of trust, affiliation, and care. It lines up perfectly with all the non-sexual kissing we do, kissing a child, a kiss on the cheek. It's a fossil of an ancient caring behavior.
This deep dive has just completely dismantled the idea that kissing is some kind of human universal. What we're really seeing is this ancient primate trait, millions of years old, that's been repurposed over and over.
Exactly. And it's persisted because it performs these incredibly vital, rapid-fire functions for mate selection and for keeping our relationships together.
We've established that the romantic kiss, this act we load with so much meaning, is probably an exaptation. It borrowed its physical form from something as mundane as sharing food or, well, picking a bug off a friend's back.
Which is a pretty provocative thought when you stop and think about it.
It really is.
And it leaves you with a final question. If the kiss, one of our most intimate rituals, is really just a compressed symbolic echo of an ancient practical necessity, what does that mean for our other complex bonding behaviors? Think about something like dancing or giving gifts. Go look at your own sources and ask yourself, what other fundamental rituals in your life are actually just the beautiful ghosts of old necessity?
Under the canopy where shadows play, crickets sing secrets at the edge of day. A bird calls sharp like a question in the